Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. A couple months back I made a video on Danganronpa trigger Happy Havoc and you guys loved it, so thanks for all the love on that one. I can't tell if this was meant as an insult or if it's just an observation, but he's not wrong. If you haven't seen that video, I would highly recommend it because I think that it's a pretty good video, but I am of course biased, so go and see for yourselves. There were also a bunch of comments on that video saying that if I liked the first game, then they couldn't wait for me to experience the second game, so I thought, screw it, let's play Danganronpa 2 Goodbye Despair. And it is true, the second game somehow manages to blow the first one out of the water, but it exceeded my admittedly high expectations. I spent almost the entirety of the final 2 chapters of this game with my jaw essentially planted on the ground. I expected to enjoy Danganronpa 2. But I didn't expect to be playing the perfect sequel. If you're unfamiliar with the concept of Danganronpa, I'll give you the quickest rundown possible, like a 20-second version. A group of students are trapped and told the only way to escape is to murder another student and get away with it in the class trial. If the murderer is found guilty, they will be executed. If they get away with it, everybody else will be executed instead. With that out of the way, let's get into how Danganronpa 2 is the perfect sequel. The first place to note the improvement is the most obvious, and that is the setting. Whilst the claustrophobic essence of the school setting led to a lot of tension, there's no denying that a deserted island is just a generally much cooler setting. The island plays a crucial role in shaping the overall atmosphere, tone, and narrative of the game. Every location serves a specific purpose in immersing players into the world of despair and mystery. One of the most striking aspects of the setting in Danganronpa 2 is the contrast between the seemingly peaceful tropical island and the sinister events that unfold within it. The juxtaposition of the vibrant, colourful scenery with the dark and twisted nature of the killing game creates a sense of unease and tension that permeates throughout the game. This contrast served to highlight the contrasting themes of hope and despair that are central to the Danganronpa series, as well as to underscore the psychological toll that the game takes on its participants. Moreover, the island setting allows for a greater sense of freedom and exploration compared to the confined space of the school setting of the first game. Players are able to freely roam around the island, interacting with other characters and uncovering clues, which adds an extra layer of depth to the gameplay experience when you're doing it in an area much larger than the previous entry. The various locations on the island, from the beach, to the amusement park, to the Monokuma plushie factory, each have their own distinct atmosphere and significance to the story, contributing to the overall richness of the world. Furthermore, the island setting serves as a metaphorical representation of the character's isolation and captivity within the confines of the killing game. Despite being surrounded by natural beauty, the characters are trapped on this island miles and miles away from anybody else with no means of escape, forced to confront their deepest fears and darkest impulses head on. This sense of isolation heightens the stakes of the game and adds to the sense of dread and suspense that is pretty much standard for a Danganronpa game. And then we've got the next area where Danganronpa 2 excels, and I do feel a little bit mean and a little bit of a traitor for saying it, but that is the protagonist, Hajime. Look, I loved Makoto, but Hajime is just a much better protagonist in terms of him being a stand-in for the player. And that's what the core strength of Hajime as a protagonist is, it's his relatability. Unlike Makoto, who is characterised by his unwavering optimism and belief in the inherent goodness of others, Hajime begins his journey with a sense of doubt and insecurity. He is plagued by feelings of inadequacy and uncertainty about his own identity, which makes him a much more nuanced and relatable character. Throughout the game, you witness Hajime's growth and development as he grapples with the challenges presented to him. He is forced to confront his own insecurities, face difficult moral decisions, and ultimately come to terms with his true self. I don't think anybody could really come to terms with Hajime's true self, if I'm being completely honest, talking about the ending of the game without trying to spoil anything. But this journey of self-discovery is a central theme of Danganronpa 2, and it is Hajime's character arc that drives this thread home, as all the other character arcs kind of revolve around it in some respects. Another aspect that makes Hajime an effective protagonist is his role as an audience surrogate, as I alluded to before. As players guide him through the game's trials and investigations, it is very easy to project your own thoughts and emotions onto him, making the experience feel a lot more personal. Hajime's interactions with the other characters provide valuable insights into their personalities and motivations too, helping players to unravel the mysteries of the game's plot. Makoto could mostly be defined as being nice. Hajime isn't just nice, he clearly has a brilliant sense of dislike for Nagito on multiple occasions. He often chastises Monami. He feels a lot more like a real person than Makoto did, and that is a lot more to project yourself onto somebody who feels real than somebody who feels less so. Furthermore, this is probably the key part of it as well, Hajime's status as not knowing what his ultimate ability is, which is initially shrouded in mystery, adds an extra layer of intrigue to his character. As players are trying to uncover a lot of the clues about the island and why the killing game's happening again and why Monokuma can even be here if you've played the first game, you're also trying to figure out who the hell you're playing as and what role his ultimate ability will eventually play in the game. This draws you deeper into the game's narrative because you're eager to uncover even more secrets, even those such as your own identity. The next thing we're going to talk about is the one character who makes Danganronpa 2 stand out. A character who anybody who has ever played this game will never be able to forget. The insane dude on the thumbnail of this video, and that's of course Nagito. Nagito is to me what makes Danganronpa 2 so goddamn special. His character arc is marked inherently by moral ambiguity and a deep-seated belief in hope and his self-loathing talent of being the ultimate lucky student. Sound familiar? This actually goes even further. Not only does Nagito have the same talent as Makoto, his name is also an anagram for Makoto, and, get this, they have the same voice actor. So, you would be forgiven if you believed that Nagito was to be Makoto. I know I for sure hell did. But anyway, that's just a little bit of tidbits, a little bit of facts for you. That's not what we're talking about here. At first glance, Nagito appears to be a typical high school student who helps Hajime acclimatise to the situation. He seems bubbly and sociable and is generally just a cool dude to be around. However, as the story unfolds, it quickly becomes evident that Nagito's motivations and actions are driven by a twisted sense of morality. He idolises hope to a point where he believes that any sacrifice, even the loss of innocent lives, is justified in the pursuit of a greater hope. Nagito's unwavering faith in hope is both his greatest strength and his greatest flaw. It leads him to make decisions that others would find incomprehensible. He sees despair as a necessary catalyst for the emergence of hope, and he is willing to embrace despair himself if it means fostering hope in others. Throughout the game, Nagito's true intentions remain shrouded in complete and utter mystery. Is he a hero? Is he a villain? Is he a friend? Is he a foe? Players are constantly kept on their toes, never quite sure where Nagito's true allegiance lies or whether he's even sane. But one thing is for sure, whenever he's on screen, you are engaged. What makes Nagito such a compelling character is his unpredictability. He is not simply a cut and dry antagonist. Rather, he is a nuanced and multifaceted individual whose actions are driven by a complex interplay of motives and beliefs. This complexity forces players to grapple with their own understanding of morality and the nature of hope. Whilst his reasoning may seem often very, very outlandish, you cannot deny he is very helpful in the class trials, and it does make you think somewhat, what the hell is this guy? In fact, if you complete his free time events, you learn that he's actually been diagnosed with, and please take note of my pronunciation on this, I'm sure it will be perfect, Stage 3 malignant lymphoma and frontotemporal dementia. Essentially meaning his brain is deteriorating. There's a hell of a lot of layers to Nagito. He's more than just a psycho descending into madness. I'm now going to spoil something big about Nagito, something so big that if you haven't finished this game, then you need to skip to this time on screen, so go and do that. Right, those people have gone now. Now it's us, the people that have finished the game, the cool kids. Chapter 5's trial is by far my favourite in this game, followed by Chapter 4, which we will talk about later. But the Chapter 5 trial is so complicated as Nagito is killed at a time where the 6 other characters were all together. Nagito's final moments encapsulate his character perfectly. It is revealed that he hid poison inside an anti-fire grenade and then hid the canister with other anti-fire grenades. He then positioned a spear above himself that would fall once he loosens his grip on the cord. He also stages a fire to occur once the other 6 students open the door, which forces them to throw the anti-fire grenades to put out the fire. But one of the characters, unbeknownst to them, will be throwing a poison grenade into where Nagito is, either killing him directly or rendering him unconscious, forcing him to release the aforementioned cord and have the spear impale him. What the fuck? Nagito wanted to expose the traitor whatever the cost, and he trusted his own ability as the ultimate lucky student to ensure that whoever ended up throwing the poison grenade would be the traitor. Nagito's death is neither a straightforward murder nor a straightforward suicide, but rather a calculated suicide orchestrated as part of his elaborate plan to uncover the traitor amongst the group. This reflects Nagito's complex and twisted personality and his just simple belief in hope above all else, and his sacrificial ways of using despair to uncover it. He is willing to sacrifice himself in pursuit of finding out the traitor, whatever the cost. Throughout the game, Nagito's actions are driven by his obsession with hope and his belief that despair is necessary in order to bring about the true hope. His death exemplifies his philosophy as he sees himself as a martyr for the cause he believes in. His demise also creates a power vacuum within the group. Nagito's death serves as a catalyst for the remaining students to confront their own beliefs and motivations, as they grapple with the consequences of his actions and the implications of their own survival. The moment when you realise that it's essentially a guessing game as to who the accidental killer was is an insane moment, and for me, the best moment in the entire game. Nagito's death also contributes to the development of the other characters by a considerable distance. Throughout Danganronpa 2, Nagito serves as a foil to the other students, challenging their beliefs and forcing them to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves and the world around them. His death prompts the remaining students to reflect on their relationships with one another and their own moral compass, deepening the characterization and adding layers of complexity to this already completely bizarre narrative. His death also encapsulates the theme of sacrifice in the game, as I alluded to beforehand, which was also explored in other class trials that I shan't name. By sacrificing himself in pursuit of his ideals, Nagito becomes a symbol of the lengths to which individuals will go to in order to uphold their beliefs. His death serves as a reminder of the moral ambiguity of the world of Danganronpa, where characters are forced to make difficult choices in the face of overcoming despair. And if you wanted even another layer, that's right, we still haven't talked enough about Nagito yet. If you remember in chapter 4, when Nagito attempts to beat the final death room, you'll remember that he had to play Russian roulette, but he instead filled the revolver with 5 bullets instead of 1, giving himself a 1 in 6 chance of survival, believing in his own luck. This is mirrored in Nagito's death, as he structured his death in such a way that the 6 remaining characters have to guess who the killer is, giving them, that's right, a 1 in 6 chance of survival. God damn, this game has some of the best storytelling I've ever seen. In the end, Nagito's character serves as a mirror through which players can reflect on their own beliefs and values. He challenges them to question the nature of hope and despair, and to consider the lengths they would go to in the pursuit of their ideals. Love him or hate him, Nagito leaves a lasting impression on anybody who has ever encountered him by playing this game. That was a hell of a lot about Chapter 5, but we're also going to touch upon Chapter 4, as this class trial is one of the most tipsy-turvy, downright baffling events I can recall from a game. Monokuma tricks the students into entering 2 buildings they cannot escape from, the Strawberry Building and the Grape Building. The group must split into the 2 buildings, as there aren't enough beds for them all to sleep in the same one. Each building has 2 deluxe rooms, 2 standard rooms and 2 pretty meh rooms. Not only has this insidious bear dragged them into these buildings, he's also locked them in and refused to give them food until the next kill occurs, meaning the options are to starve to death or murder somebody. It's a brilliant use of constant tension, because as soon as you recognise the situation that you're in here, you know immediately that there will be a kill soon, as there's no way everybody is willing to starve to death, and you're just waiting for it to happen, and when it does, we're treated to one of the most convoluted and layered class trials in the series thus far, focusing mostly on the structure of the buildings to figure out who could even have committed the crime. And once the perpetrator is outed, their motive and resulting speech is masterfully sincere, and delivers a profound message that resonates not only with the characters, but also with the player directly. I'm not going to go into great detail on this because we're already strapped for time with 14 minutes in, but I am going to spoil the killer and the victim in the moment, so skip to this time to avoid that if you've not played it. So, the unfortunate victim of Chapter 4 is Nekomaru, or Mekamaru as one might say. Someone I initially found a little bit annoying at the start of the game, but I very quickly found his relentless positivity very endearing, and he was clearly a source of inspiration for the other characters. And he becoming the latest victim of the killing game was one hell of a way to incite some damn despair. The murderer in this case is Gundam, a character I never fully appreciated until this chapter, and that is my bad. This wasn't a kill of malice, it was a kill of necessity. Gundam's post-trial speech reveals that he essentially sees life as a gift, and to waste that gift by choosing starvation would be a slap in the face to life itself. When prompted with the issue that Nakamura could quite easily have ran away once he realised that he had been lured to a fight to the death, Gundam reveals that they both agreed to such situation afterwards, as both Nekomaru and Gundam didn't want to give up on life and have everyone starve to death. It's also worth noting that during this class trial, Gundam doesn't actually steer the conversation away from the truth as forcefully as you'd expect the murderer to. Sometimes even asking the correct questions one would ask to get closer to the truth. When questioned on whether he was sacrificing himself on purpose, he brushes the notion off. But this whole chapter made me realise that Gundam was actually a brilliant character, and this further illustrates how fantastically Danganronpa explores the themes through its characters. I am now going to talk a little bit about our fluffy antagonist Monokuma. I spoke at length about what Monokuma represents in my Danganronpa 1 video, so we'll keep this a bit short, but he is essentially a symbol of manipulation of authority, and his absurdist characteristics are used to explore more grounded themes of real-world leaders and people. In this game, Monokuma is turned up a notch. He serves as the game's mastermind, of course, controlling the environment and setting the rules for the killing game. He imposes strict regulations on the students, forcing them to adhere to a set of guidelines designed to foster mistrust and conflict. By creating an atmosphere of paranoia and suspicion, Monokuma ensures that the students are constantly on edge, heightening the tension and drama of the game. He's also noticeably more powerful in this game, for reasons that are explained in the final chapter, which I won't spoil. I'm not going to spoil the ending in this video, but it really hammers home how powerless the students are in their predicament. Additionally, Monokuma also acts as the main source of entertainment and comic relief in the game for the audience and the players themselves. His eccentric personality and dark sense of humour provide comic relief amidst the intense and often gruesome events unfolding within the game. His antics, which include a lot of very bad puns and outdated pop culture references, and elaborate punishments for the students who break the rules, serve to keep the player from becoming burnt out by just all of the death that's going on. It is quite strange that the moments of respite come from the same source of the despair in the first place. You can make a hell of a lot of obvious metaphors about that, which I'm not going to do. He also of course serves as a symbol of power and authority within the game world, as the sole arbiter of justice. He also lies with the students in his hands, determining their fate through his arbitrary rulings and manipulative tactics. But what makes the Monokuma appearances even better are his interactions with the new character, Monami. Monami, initially Asami before Monokuma does Monokuma things, is the complete opposite of Monokuma, the antithesis, if you will. She appears as a foil to Monokuma, representing hope and unity as much as she can. As a student's teacher and guide, Monami strives to promote cooperation and friendship amongst the group, often standing in opposition to Monokuma's schemes. Throughout the game, Monokuma frequently taunts and belittles Monami, treating her as an inferior and often just subjecting her to ridicule and abuse. Despite this, Monami continues to strive for hope and redemption, albeit with very limited success. Their relationship can be seen as a reflection of the broader themes of the game, particularly the struggle between hope and despair. While Monokuma embodies the forces of despair, reveling in chaos and destruction, Monami represents the flickering sparks of hope, albeit one that is often overshadowed by the overwhelming despair of the killing game. This is shown in the class trials where Monokuma ties up Monami, so she's just kind of flopping there powerlessly. This signifies how Monokuma has a stranglehold on the hope of the characters, forcefully exerting despair upon them however he sees fit. Finally, we're going to talk about the gameplay a little bit. The class trial minigames have mostly been improved from the first game. I like the minigame where you've got to dodge things and answer questions by moving to the correct answer. I can't remember what the game's called, like a Thought Palace or Thought Dive or something like that. I like the new Panic Talk action, I like the sword game. I absolutely hate the new Hangman's Gambit. There's far too many letters on the screen at once to manage. They really fucked this. Fuck Hangman's Gambit. Sorry, lost myself there, lost my cool, we're back. The class trials are also noticeably longer this time around, with multiple lasting around 2 hours. What I will say is a lot of the time it doesn't seem stretched out though. The mysteries are genuinely just that complicated that it takes that long to unravel everything, although there are some moments that can be annoying. For example, if you figure something out, if you've got your thinking cap on, not necessarily who the killer is, but if you've figured out a part of the case before the characters do, you will have to read around 10 minutes worth of dialogue as you watch the characters slowly purge together a clue that you've already solved. This happened a lot in Chapter 3. I worked out how the killer did the kill pretty early on, and I had to watch these bozos figure it out for over 15 minutes. With Chapter 3 in particular, I was already 90% certain I knew who the killer was just from investigating. Before we even got to the trial, I had figured it out and I was correct. But that could mostly be because Chapter 3 is probably the worst one. I don't think it was as difficult to work out as the game thought it was, and it meant that the Chapter 3 trial really dragged. There were elements of this in Chapter 4 as well. I won't spoil it, but I worked out how the room worked and the structure of the buildings a hell of a lot faster than the characters did. In these moments it kind of drags, but I kind of understand it because they have to make sure that every single player understands what's going on before they can move on to the next point. So I do understand it, and most of the time they are enthralling and I thoroughly enjoyed them. Right, we're in the conclusion stage now. We're 21 minutes in, good lord. I couldn't possibly go over every little detail that goes on in this game because we would quite literally be here all day, but I talked about the main points that I feel are the most important. If you want me to go into more detail about each chapter, then let me know in the comments and I'll see if that's something worth doing. But to summarise, Danganronpa 2 is the perfect sequel. It's an all new cast, but the core narrative from the first game still continues on. The game makes improvements to its setting, protagonist, and somehow manages to create an even better cast of characters, with Nagito of course being the standout. Danganronpa is a visual novel, and visual novels aren't for everyone, but I do think it's a shame that some people will go through life not experiencing Danganronpa 2, because it's storytelling at its very best, with twisty turns, phenomenal characters, and a premise that just gets your gears turning, and that is why I think Danganronpa 2 is the perfect sequel. Thank you for making it to the end of this incredibly long video. I appreciate you so much if you've made it this far, and if you have, you might as well leave a like because you must have enjoyed the video to get this far in, and if you did enjoy it, why not subscribe? I make videos every single week that are normally at least half the length of this one. And before you ask, yes, I do plan on playing Danganronpa 3 at some stage. I do own it, but I don't know when that will be. But for now, that is all. Have a nice day, and goodbye.
I feel great now that I've shared that with you. Only a total hack would wait until the end of the story to reveal a cliched twist like that.